The mahogany conference table gleamed under the crystal chandeliers of Whitmore and Associates, one of Manhattan's most prestigious law firms. I sat perfectly still in my navy Armani suit, my hands folded over my vintage Hermes clutch, watching as my son Marcus and his wife Vanessa swept into the room like they owned the place. Vanessa wore head-to-toe Chanel, the kind of outfit that screamed new money trying too hard. Her blonde highlights were fresh, her manicure flawless, and her smile was the sort that didn't reach her eyes. Marcus, my only child, barely glanced my direction as he took the seat at the head of the table. The seat that should have been mine. "Mother," he said coolly, as if addressing a distant acquaintance rather than the woman who'd raised him alone after his father died. "I'm surprised you came." Vanessa leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs with deliberate slowness. "Marcus, darling, did you forget to tell your mother?" She turned to me with mock sympathy dripping from every word. "This reading is for principal stakeholders only. The company board members. The actual decision-makers." She paused, letting the insult land. "You know, people who matter in the business." I said nothing. Just maintained eye contact with the kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly what's about to happen. The lawyer, Jonathan Whitmore, adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. At 63, with silver hair and a reputation for handling billion-dollar estates, he'd seen every family drama imaginable. But today, his eyes held something different. Anticipation. "Actually, Mrs. Chen requested this meeting specifically," Jonathan said carefully. "And as the primary executor of the estate, I'm obligated to honor her wishes." "Estate?" Vanessa laughed, a sharp sound that echoed off the marble walls. "Marcus already told me about the trust restructuring 6 months ago. His mother signed over operational control when how did you put it, honey, when she could no longer handle the complexity of modern business. My son had the decency to look uncomfortable for half a second before his wife's hand on his arm steadied him. It was time, Mom. You built something incredible with Dad, but that was decades ago. The tech sector moves fast. We needed someone with fresh vision. Someone younger, you mean, I said quietly. My first words since entering the room. Vanessa's smile sharpened. If the shoe fits, Eleanor. You're 72. Most women your age are playing bridge and spoiling grandchildren, not trying to run a tech empire. She opened her designer handbag and pulled out a document, sliding it across the table. We've already made plans for the estate. Marcus and I will be relocating the company headquarters to San Francisco. His father's dusty old office in Brooklyn will become luxury condos. And this building, she gestured around the law office, will be the last place we have to discuss your declining involvement. The document was a glossy real estate prospectus. My late husband David's office building, the converted textile factory where we'd launched Chen Industries 43 years ago, redesigned as Williamsburg Grand Luxury Residences. My heart clenched, but my expression remained neutral. Marcus shifted in his seat. "We'll set you up very comfortably, Mom. A penthouse at the Ashford on the Upper East Side. Close to your book club friends. A generous monthly allowance. You'll never want for anything. Except my company," I said. "It's my company now," Marcus corrected, not unkindly. "Just factually, the way you might tell a child that grown-ups are talking. Dad left it to me in the primary trust. You've been wonderful as chairman emeritus, but it's time to let go." Jonathan Whitmore opened his briefcase. I watched Vanessa's face carefully as he pulled out not one folder, but 3 thick accordion files that landed on the table with a satisfying thud. "Before we begin," Jonathan said, and now I caught it, the slight tremor in his voice that might have been suppressed laughter, "I need to confirm everyone's identity for the record." He looked at me. "Eleanor Mai Chen, founder and CEO of Chen Industries?" "Present," I said softly. "Marcus David Chen, current COO of Chen Industries and son of Eleanor and David Chen?" "Yes." Marcus frowned at the files. "And Vanessa Price Chen, married to Marcus Chen for 11 years, Vanessa supplied impatiently. "Can we speed this up? We have a 4 o'clock with the architects." Jonathan smiled then. It was subtle, but unmistakable. "Oh, I think you'll want to cancel that meeting." He opened the first file. Shall we begin with the incorporation documents from 1981? Vanessa waved her hand dismissively. Ancient history. I thought this was about the current estate structure. It is, Jonathan assured her. But you see, Mrs. Price Chen, you seem to be operating under several misunderstandings about how the Chen family trust was actually structured. You told Mrs. Chen she was out of the 80 million, I believe? Vanessa's confident smile faltered slightly. The company valuation is $83 million. Marcus controls the operational trust. Eleanor gets her stipend from the founder's pension. It's all in the 2023 restructuring That never actually happened, I interrupted gently. The room went very still. Marcus looked between me and the lawyer. What are you talking about? I signed the papers last November. You were there, Mom. You signed too. I signed documents, I agreed. But not the ones you thought. Jonathan pulled out a highlighted page and turned it toward them. What you signed, Mr. Chen, was an operational authority agreement giving you limited power of attorney for daily business decisions. Standard for a COO. What you did not sign, what was never executed, was any transfer of ownership, equity, or control of Chen Industries. Vanessa's face went pale. That's impossible. I saw the trust documents myself. My lawyer reviewed them. Your lawyer reviewed documents that Mrs. Chen's team prepared, Jonathan said mildly. Documents that appeared to give you what you wanted, but legally speaking, granted nothing more than the authority to approve vendor contracts under $500,000 and hire employees below senior management level. But the board meeting, Marcus protested. I've been running the company for 6 months. Making decisions. The expansion into AI development. The new hiring initiatives. All within your authority as COO, I said. And all subject to final approval by the company's majority shareholder. I paused. Me. Vanessa shot to her feet. This is fraud. You tricked us. I protected myself, I corrected calmly. And it's fortunate I did, given what else Mr. Whitmore has uncovered. Jonathan opened the second file. This one was thinner, but the documents inside made Marcus's face drain of color. These are financial records from Chen Industries accounts over the past 6 months. It appears that someone has been systematically transferring money into a private consulting firm called Apex Strategic Solutions. He looked up. Would either of you like to tell Mrs. Chen who owns Apex Strategic Solutions? The silence stretched like taffy. How? Vanessa whispered. How did I know? I finished for her. Because 43 years ago, I learned an important lesson. When you're a woman in tech, people underestimate you. They smile to your face and plot behind your back. They assume that because you're kind, you're weak. Because you're older, you're out of touch. I stood slowly, feeling every eye in the room on me. David taught me something before he died. He said, trust is earned through evidence, not promises. Always know more than you reveal. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a simple thumb drive. Set it in the center of the table like a chess piece capturing a king. That drive contains 6 months of emails between Vanessa and her brother's shell company. Documentation of $2.3 million in fraudulent transfers. Correspondence with 3 board members discussing a hostile takeover attempt planned for this spring. And audio recordings of a conversation you had 3 weeks ago about declaring me mentally incompetent and seizing control through conservatorship. Marcus looked like he might be sick. Vanessa's hands trembled as she gripped the back of her chair. You can't prove. Actually, Jonathan interjected, Mrs. Chen has provided extensive documentation. Time-stamped. Verified by independent forensic accountants. And legally obtained through security measures she implemented in 2019, after the first time she suspected internal theft. The first time? Marcus managed. There's been more than one attempt to push me out, I said. You're not even the first family member to try. Your uncle Richard attempted something similar in 1997. I dealt with it quietly then. But this. I gestured to the files. This was systematic. Calculated. And it involved my son. I sat back down, crossed my legs, and folded my hands. The posture of someone completely in control. So let's talk about the estate, shall we? I said pleasantly. Because you're right about one thing, Vanessa. This meeting is for stakeholders only. I turned to Jonathan. Proceed with the reading. Vanessa sank back into her chair. I watched her expensive designer armor crack around the edges. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. They had no idea what was coming. But they were about to find out. 6 months earlier, I'd been standing in the same office where David and I had started everything. The old Williamsburg textile factory we'd converted into Chen Industries headquarters still smelled faintly of machine oil and possibility, though we'd long since replaced the industrial equipment with sleek workstations and fiber optic cables. I was 72 years old. I'd immigrated from Taiwan at 17 with $200 and a head full of engineering dreams that most people told me were impossible for a girl. David Chen had been the teaching assistant in my first MIT computer science class, one of only 3 women enrolled. He'd looked at my circuit board designs and said, "This is going to change things." We married in 1970. Started Chen Industries in 1981 with a small business administration loan and a converted warehouse. While David handled the software development, I managed everything else: accounting, HR, sales, customer service. We worked 90-hour weeks. We ate ramen and dreamed in code. We built something that mattered. By 1990, we had 50 employees. By 2000, we'd developed 3 patents in data compression technology that every major tech company wanted to license. By 2010, we employed 400 people and had contracts with the Department of Defense. David died in 2016, suddenly, from a heart attack at his desk. He was 70 years old and still writing code every morning before sunrise. I found him slumped over his keyboard, his last program still running. An algorithm for predicting server failures. It worked, of course. David's code always worked. I ran the company alone for 6 years after that. Marcus had been working as COO since 2014, learning the business from the ground up the way David and I had insisted. He was talented, not as brilliant as his father, but steady. Reliable. Or so I'd thought. "Mom, we need to talk about the future." That conversation had happened a year ago, in my corner office overlooking the East River. Marcus had brought Vanessa, though I hadn't invited her. She'd perched on my leather sofa like a bird of prey, her eyes cataloging every piece of furniture, every family photo, every reminder that this company existed before she married into it. "The board is concerned," Marcus had said. "About succession planning. About modernization. Dad's been gone 6 years now, and you're still running things like it's 1995. We're profitable," I'd pointed out. "Employee satisfaction is at 92%. We just landed the contract with Amazon Web Services." "Because of deals you negotiated personally," Vanessa interjected smoothly. "Because of relationships built over decades." "But what happens when you—" She'd trailed off delicately. "When you're not here anymore?" The words hung in the air. "When you die," she meant. "When you're finally out of the way." "I'm planning to work until I'm 80, I'd said. David did. I intend to honor that. Marcus had exchanged a look with his wife. The kind of look that said, "See? I told you." "Mom, be reasonable. You're 71. You've earned retirement. A board chair emeritus position. Full benefits, of course. We'd never." "You want me to step down," I'd said flatly. "We want you to transition into a role that better suits this phase of your life," Vanessa had corrected. "Marcus has been COO for 8 years. He's ready. The junior developers respect him. The board trusts him. It's time." What she didn't say, but I heard clearly, "It's my time. I've been waiting for you to die or disappear so we can finally cash out." I'd seen her type before. Vanessa Price had married Marcus 11 years ago, right after he'd been promoted to COO and the company had gone through a particularly profitable quarter. She was 32 to his 40. Beautiful in that expensive, high-maintenance way. She'd worked briefly in marketing at a startup, leveraged that into consulting, and then leveraged Marcus into marriage. She wanted the penthouse. The Hamptons house. The charity galas and museum boards that came with being Mrs. Chen of Chen Industries. She didn't want the 90-hour weeks or the midnight phone calls from clients or the bone-deep exhaustion that built something real. I'll think about it, I'd told them. But what I'd really thought was, time to start paying attention. I'd called Susan Eng that same afternoon. Susan was our head of IT security, a razor-sharp woman in her 40s who'd worked at the NSA before joining Chen Industries. I need you to audit our systems, I'd told her. Everything. Especially executive access logs. Should I be looking for something specific? Susan had asked carefully. Let's just say I want to know who's looking at what. And when. And why. The audit had taken 3 weeks. Susan had presented her findings in a private meeting, just the two of us, with no digital record. Someone's been accessing the financial systems outside their authorization level, she'd said. Creating mirror accounts. Running projections on what would happen if certain operational costs were redirected. Marcus. His login credentials. But the access patterns don't match his usual behavior. His methodical. Checks reports during business hours. Whoever did this was accessing the system at 2 a.m. Using VPN masking. Being sneaky. I'd closed my eyes. Show me. The evidence had been damning. Not enough for criminal charges, not yet, but enough to make my blood run cold. Someone was planning something. Preparing the ground for something bigger. Keep monitoring, I'd told Susan. And not a word to anyone. That's when I'd started building my defense. Quietly. Carefully. The way David had taught me. I'd reorganized the trust structure, working with Jonathan Whitmore to create what looked like standard retirement planning but was actually an impenetrable fortress. I'd moved key assets into protected accounts. I'd documented everything. And I'd waited. The second sign had come 3 months later. I'd overheard Vanessa on the phone in the ladies' room at a company event. She hadn't known I was in the stall. The old lady is stubborn, but she can't hold on forever, Vanessa had said. Marcus is working on her. By Christmas, we'll have operational control. Then it's just a matter of time before we can restructure the whole thing. His shares plus mine means we control 51% once she's out of the picture. What if she won't sign? The voice on the phone had asked her brother, I'd later learned. Then we'll find another way. Elderly people have accidents. Mental decline. She's 72. Who's going to question it? I'd stood in that bathroom stall, my hand pressed against my mouth, fighting the urge to vomit. This was my son's wife. The woman who'd smiled at family dinners and called me mom and promised to take care of Marcus. And she was plotting to push me out of my own company. Or worse. That night, I'd hired a private investigator. I'd installed recording devices in my office, legal in New York with single-party consent. I'd started documenting everything. And I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to warn them off. I was going to let them show me exactly who they were. Let them dig the hole deep enough that they couldn't climb back out. Because here's what Vanessa didn't understand about elderly Chinese women who'd built tech empires from nothing. We didn't survive 43 years in a male-dominated industry by being weak. We survived by being underestimated. And then striking when no one saw it coming. I'd planned a small gathering at my Upper West Side apartment, nothing elaborate, just a few close friends and colleagues. Marcus had promised to come. Just family, he'd said. We'll take you to dinner at Marsa. Your favorite. I'd spent the afternoon preparing. My apartment was modest by Manhattan standards, a 2-bedroom overlooking Central Park that David and I had bought in 1989. The walls held 40 years of memories. Photos from our wedding, Marcus's baby pictures, framed articles about the company. I'd made David's mother's recipe for red bean soup, even though my hands weren't as steady as they used to be. Marcus arrived at 6 p.m. Alone. Where's Vanessa? I'd asked, setting out teacups. She couldn't make it, he'd said, not meeting my eyes. Something came up. The first warning bell. Vanessa loved any opportunity to be seen somewhere expensive. She wouldn't miss Marsa unless she had a reason. That's all right, I'd said. More time for us to talk. He'd settled on the sofa, looking uncomfortable in his Tom Ford suit. The boy who'd once worn hand-me-down jeans and played with circuit boards at the kitchen table was now someone I barely recognized. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important." I'd poured tea with steady hands. "Of course. It's about the company. About the future. I know we've discussed this before, but the board met yesterday, and they're concerned." "Concerned about what?" He'd pulled out a folder. "Corporate letterhead. Board meeting minutes. Concerned about your decision-making capacity. About whether you're still capable of handling the strategic demands of a modern tech company." The words hit like a slap. My decision-making capacity. You've been making mistakes, Mom. Small things at first, but they're adding up. You approved that vendor contract last month that was $200,000 over budget. You scheduled the same meeting twice in 1 week. You forgot the password to your email and had to have IT reset it 3 times. Each accusation was true. Each had an explanation. The vendor had emergency hardware we needed, the meeting was rescheduled by someone else, the password reset was because IT had updated our security protocols. But laid out like this, one after another, they sounded damning. "This is an intervention," I'd said quietly. "This is me trying to protect you," Marcus had countered. "The board wants you to step down immediately. They're talking about bringing in outside consultants to evaluate your competency. There are legal mechanisms for removing CEOs who are no longer fit to serve. I convinced them to let me talk to you first. To do this the family way." How generous. He'd set the folder on the coffee table between us. "Sign the transition documents. Accept the chairman emeritus position. Let me run the company officially. You'll still have your pension, your benefits, your legacy. But it's time to let go." I'd looked at my son, my only child, the baby I'd held at 2 a.m. while David finalized code for a client deadline, and seen a stranger. "Did Vanessa write this speech?" He'd flinched. "This isn't about Vanessa. Isn't it? These concerns you're mentioning. These board members who suddenly question my competency. Did any of this come up before you married her? Don't make this personal." "It's all personal, Marcus. This is our company. Our family. And you're asking me to walk away from something your father and I built from nothing because your wife has convinced you I'm senile. You're 72. His voice rose, frustrated. "Dad died at 70. Uncle Richard had dementia at 74. These things happen, Mom. There's no shame in admitting you need to slow down." "I'm not slowing down. I'm being pushed out." He'd stood then, pacing to the window. "You're being paranoid. Classic sign of what? Dementia. Incompetence. Or maybe of being a woman who's seen too many men and women try to take what doesn't belong to them." The apartment had fallen silent except for the distant sound of traffic on Central Park West. Sirens. Car horns. The city I'd called home for 55 years, continuing without us. "I'm not signing anything," I'd said finally. "And I'm not stepping down." Marcus had turned from the window, his face hard. "Then you leave us no choice. The board will convene an emergency meeting next week. They'll vote to remove you for cause. There will be a competency hearing. Company doctors will testify. It will be public. Messy. Your reputation will be destroyed." My reputation was built on 43 years of results, I'd said. Not on what some bought-off doctors say in a corporate power play. "This isn't a power play. This is me trying to save you from yourself." He'd grabbed his coat. "Sign the documents, Mom. Do it the easy way. Because the hard way is going to hurt." He'd left then. Left me sitting in my apartment with cold tea and red bean soup no one would eat. Left me alone on my birthday. I'd sat there for a long time after he'd gone, watching the sun set over Central Park. The city lights blinking on one by one. Thinking about David. About all the late nights and early mornings. About the factory warehouse and the first contract and Marcus's college graduation. Then I'd picked up my phone and called Jonathan Whitmore. "Jonathan, it's Eleanor. I need you to accelerate everything we discussed. And I need you to add something else to the file." "What's that?" Evidence of attempted elder abuse through financial coercion and guardianship fraud. I want documentation that if they try to declare me incompetent, we have grounds for criminal charges. Are you sure you want to go that far? That's your son. Yes, I'd said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. That's my son. And he just threatened to destroy me to get what he wants. So now I protect myself. I'd hung up and made one more call. To Susan in IT. The monitoring we discussed. I need it expanded. I need to know every email, every phone call, every document that leaves Marcus's office. Can you do that legally? If we have reasonable suspicion of fraud? Yes. Then consider this your green light. That night, I'd eaten red bean soup alone. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry. And as David used to say, an angry Eleanor Chen is a dangerous Eleanor Chen. Years. I attended board meetings and smiled politely while board members, men David and I had promoted, whose careers we'd made, avoided my eyes. I approved budgets and reviewed contracts and pretended not to notice the whispers that followed me down hallways. Losing her edge, someone murmured at the water cooler. Sad, really. But it happens to everyone eventually. Better to go out gracefully than cling on too long. Vanessa had started coming to the office more frequently. She'd set up a workspace in Marcus's suite, ostensibly to help with the transition. What she actually did was monitor my movements, intercept my communications, and gradually insert herself into decisions that had nothing to do with her. Eleanor, she'd say with false sweetness, did you remember the marketing meeting this afternoon? No. Well, good thing I'm here to remind you. She'd started calling me Eleanor instead of Mom. The shift was subtle but deliberate. A way of creating distance. Of signaling to others that I was no longer really family, just an obstacle to be managed. But while they plotted, I prepared. Susan's monitoring revealed exactly what I'd suspected. Vanessa had been systematically building a case against me. She'd created a document titled Evidence of Decline that catalogued every small mistake, every forgotten password, every meeting I'd supposedly missed, most of which had been cancelled by her without my knowledge. She'd also been meeting regularly with 3 board members, Richard Westwood, Paul Anderson, and Jennifer Kim. The same 3 who'd benefited most from a recent stock option restructuring that Marcus had pushed through last quarter. They're building a coalition, Susan had told me in one of our off-site meetings at a coffee shop in Brooklyn. Enough votes to force you out at the next board meeting. When is that scheduled? February 15th. 2 months from now. I'd stirred my coffee, thinking. What about the financial transfers? Still happening. $2.3 million moved to Apex Strategic Solutions over 6 months. But it's been done cleverly, coded as consulting fees, technical support contracts, marketing services. On paper, it looks legitimate. But it's not. No. Apex is owned by Vanessa's brother, Derek Price. He's a former day trader with a history of securities fraud. The company was incorporated 3 months before the first transfer. It's a shell. A way to siphon money out of Chen Industries. Can we prove it? Susan had smiled. I have a friend at the SEC. She's been very interested in my documentation. That was my first mini-victory. A small card to hold in reserve. The second came from an unexpected source. I'd received an email from a former employee, Daniel Ortega. Daniel had worked as Marcus's executive assistant for 5 years before being mysteriously fired 3 months earlier. The email was brief. Mrs. Chen, I hope you're well. I wanted to reach out about something that's been bothering me. Can we talk? In private. We'd met at a diner in Queens. Daniel was 28, sharp, ambitious in the good way. He'd been planning to apply to business school when Marcus let him go. They said I leaked confidential information, Daniel had told me over coffee. But I didn't. I was fired because I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. What did you see? He'd pulled out his phone. Pulled up a voice memo. I recorded this 3 days before they fired me. I was working late, and Mr. Chen and Mrs. Chen, Vanessa, were in his office. They didn't know I was still there. He'd pressed play. Vanessa's voice, crystal clear, we need to accelerate the timeline. Your mother isn't going to step down voluntarily. We've tried gentle persuasion. Now we need to force her hand. Marcus, the board won't support a hostile removal without cause. Vanessa, then we create cause. We document incompetence. We get the company psychiatrist to sign off on cognitive decline. We make it so obvious that the board has no choice. And if that doesn't work? Marcus, what? Vanessa, then we explore a guardianship. Your mother is 72. She lives alone. She's forgetting things. It wouldn't be hard to convince a judge that she needs a conservator. Someone to manage her affairs. Someone like you. The silence on the recording had been deafening. Then Marcus, that's extreme. Vanessa, that's necessary. We've put 2 years into positioning you for this. Derek's company is ready to handle the restructuring once we have control. We can triple Chen Industries' valuation in 5 years, but only if we move fast. Only if your mother isn't blocking every modernization effort because she's stuck in 1990. Marcus, she built this company. Vanessa, and now she's holding it back. Sentiment is expensive, Marcus. Are you in this or not? Another pause. Then, I'm in. Daniel had stopped the recording. I made a backup and emailed it to myself before they could confiscate my phone. I knew I'd need it eventually. I'd sat there in that Queen's diner, listening to my son agree to have me declared incompetent, and felt something inside me crystallize. Will you testify to this? I'd asked. Yes. But I need something in return. Name it. Reinstatement. And a letter of recommendation for business school. I want my career back. Done. And Daniel. Thank you. He'd smiled. Your husband gave me my first real job. Told me I had potential when no one else would. I'm not going to let them destroy what he built. The third piece came from Jonathan Whitmore himself. He'd called me on a Sunday afternoon in late January. Eleanor, I've been doing some digging into the trust documents Marcus thinks he signed. The ones Vanessa's been referencing. And they're forgeries. Good forgeries, but forgeries nonetheless. Someone created fake documents that look like official trust amendments, complete with notary stamps and legal seals. But they were never filed with the court. They have no legal standing. Vanessa. That would be my guess. She was probably planning to file them after you'd been removed, backdated to make it look like the transfer happened months ago. It's sophisticated fraud. Can we prove it? The forensics team I hired can. And once we do, we're not just talking about corporate malfeasance anymore. We're talking about identity theft, forgery, attempted fraud. Criminal charges. I'd closed my eyes. This is going to destroy my son. Your son is complicit in attempting to destroy you, Jonathan had reminded me gently. The question is, are you willing to do what's necessary to stop him? I'd thought about David. About the late nights in the factory. About Marcus as a baby, sleeping in a bassinet beside my desk while I balanced the books. About the day he'd graduated from MIT, wearing the same engineering school tie his father had worn. About the man in that recording, agreeing to have me declared incompetent so his wife could steal the company. Yes, I'd said. I'm willing. The board meeting was scheduled for February 15th. I had 3 weeks to finish building my case. 3 weeks to gather every piece of evidence. 3 weeks to prepare for war. I spent them quietly, attending meetings, smiling politely, letting them think they were winning, letting Vanessa believe I was defeated. But every night, I met with Jonathan. With Susan. With the forensic accountants and the private investigators and the SEC lawyers who were very interested in Apex Strategic Solutions. Every night, I built the fortress. And every morning, I went to the office and played the role of the fading matriarch. The old woman past her prime. The obstacles soon to be removed. David used to have a saying, the best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't see until it's too late. They wouldn't see it coming. Not until the moment I destroyed them. Perhaps we should start with the actual structure of the Chen Family Trust, Jonathan said, sliding a bound document across the table. This is the original trust agreement, filed with the New York State Courts in 1982. Eleanor Chen is listed as the primary truster and majority owner of Chen Industries, with 85% of voting shares. David Chen held 15% until his death, at which point his shares transferred to Eleanor per the marriage clause. Marcus Chen was granted a minority interest, 5% of non-voting stock, as an inheritance benefit. Marcus grabbed the document. That's not possible. I'm the COO. I've been running. You've been running daily operations with delegated authority, Jonathan interrupted smoothly, which your mother can revoke at any time. The restructuring documents you signed last November, they granted you operational power of attorney for decisions under $500,000 and personnel matters below senior management. Nothing more. But I saw the trust amendments, Vanessa insisted. Her voice had lost its confidence, taking on a shrill edge. I had my lawyer review them. They clearly showed. They showed forgeries. Jonathan pulled out another document. This one had bright red stamps across each page. Fraudulent document not filed with court. These are the trust amendments you referenced. They were never filed. Never notarized by an actual notary. The seal belongs to a notary who retired in 2019. Someone went to considerable trouble to make these look real, but they're worthless. I watched Vanessa's hand tremble as she reached for her water glass. This was the moment. The crack in her perfect facade. Furthermore, Jonathan continued, clearly enjoying himself now, we have evidence of systematic financial fraud. He opened the second accordion file. Apex Strategic Solutions. A consulting firm supposedly providing technical services to Chen Industries. $2.3 million in payments over 6 months. The company is owned by Derek Price. Your brother, Mrs. Price Chen. Derek's company is legitimate, Vanessa said quickly. They provided AI consulting, marketing analysis. They provided nothing. Susan Eng's voice came from the doorway. I'd asked her to join us for this part. She walked in carrying a laptop. I've reviewed every piece of supposed work product Apex delivered. It's plagiarized content from publicly available sources. The technical specifications are copied from open source documentation. The market analysis is from free industry reports. Nothing is original. Nothing has value. It's fraud. Marcus turned to his wife. Vanessa, what is she talking about? She's lying, Vanessa snapped. They're all lying to protect Eleanor's control. Actually, I said quietly, I have recordings. The room went silent. I pulled out my phone, placed it in the center of the table, and pressed play. Daniel's recording filled the conference room. Vanessa's voice, clear and unmistakable. We need to accelerate the timeline. Your mother isn't going to step down voluntarily. We document incompetence. We get the company psychiatrist to sign off on cognitive decline. And if that doesn't work, then we explore a guardianship. Marcus's face went gray. When was this recorded? 3 months ago, I said. In your office. By your executive assistant Daniel Ortega, whom you fired for leaking confidential information. He didn't leak anything. You fired him to cover your tracks. You're recording employees? Vanessa demanded. That's illegal. Single-party consent in New York, Jonathan said calmly. Perfectly legal when Daniel reasonably suspected criminal activity. Which brings us to the third file. He opened it with the reverence of someone unveiling a masterpiece. These are communications between Vanessa Price Chen and 3 Chen Industries board members, Richard Westwood, Paul Anderson, and Jennifer Kim. The emails discuss payments, disguised as consulting fees, to vote in favor of removing Eleanor Chen as CEO. The amounts range from $50,000 to $150,000 per board member. Paid by Apex Strategic Solutions. Using money embezzled from Chen Industries. Richard Westwood, who was sitting at the far end of the table and had been silent until now, stood abruptly. This is outrageous. I'm calling my attorney. Please do, Jonathan said. The SEC will want to speak with him. And with you. And with the others who accepted bribes to vote against the company's founder and majority shareholder. Paul Anderson had gone pale. Jennifer Kim stared at the table, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. Marcus turned to Vanessa. His face was a mask of horror and dawning comprehension. "You bribed the board." "I did what was necessary," Vanessa hissed. "What you were too weak to do. Your mother is destroying this company with her outdated thinking. Someone had to." "You embezzled $2.3 million, Marcus said flatly. "Using your brother's fake company. You bribed board members. You tried to forge trust documents." His voice rose. "You plotted to have my mother declared incompetent so you could take control." "I plotted to secure our future," Vanessa shouted. "The future you were too sentimental to fight for. This was supposed to be ours, Marcus. The penthouse, the wealth, the status. But as long as your mother held on with her wrinkled claws." "Enough." My voice cut through the room like a blade. I stood slowly, and every eye turned to me. "You're done, Vanessa. The SEC has the financial records. The district attorney has the recordings. The board members who accepted bribes will be removed and likely prosecuted. And you." I turned to my son. "You, Marcus, have a choice to make." He looked at me with something like desperation. "Mom, I didn't know about the bribes. I didn't know about Derek's company. I thought. You thought you could push your elderly mother aside and take what she built because your wife convinced you it was time," I said. Not angrily. Just factually. "You agreed to have me declared incompetent. You participated in attempting to forge trust documents. You may not have known every detail of Vanessa's plan, but you were complicit in the goal." "I'm sorry," he whispered. "Sorry doesn't repair broken trust, Marcus. But it's a start. I collected my papers, my clutch, my dignity. Jonathan will be in touch about your options. You can resign from Chen Industries with a severance package and a non-disclosure agreement. Or you can face criminal charges for fraud and elder financial abuse. Your choice." I turned to Vanessa. "You, however, don't get a choice. I'm pressing charges for embezzlement, fraud, identity theft, and attempted guardianship abuse. You'll be hearing from my attorneys. And the police." Vanessa's face had gone from pale to red. "You can't do this. I'm family. I'm Marcus's wife." "Then you should have acted like family," I said simply. "Instead of a thief." I walked toward the door, then paused. Turned back. "Oh, and Vanessa. That $80 million you mentioned. The company valuation? It's actually $127 million. I closed a major acquisition deal with Microsoft last week. Largest contract in company history. Signed it myself." I smiled. Guess my declining cognitive abilities weren't so declined after all. Jonathan was laughing now. Actually laughing out loud, which I'd never heard him do in a legal conference. "One more thing," I added. "That building in Williamsburg you wanted to turn into luxury condos? The factory where David and I started everything? I've donated it to the Brooklyn Technical Education Foundation. It will become a tuition-free coding school for underprivileged students. The Eleanor and David Chen Innovation Center. It opens next fall." Vanessa looked like she might pass out. I left the conference room, leaving them to process what had just happened. Left the board members scrambling to call their lawyers. Left my son sitting in shock beside his criminal wife. Left them all behind. Because I had one more thing to do. The next 72 hours were chaos. The story broke on TechCrunch first. Chen Industries CEO uncovers family embezzlement scheme. Then Bloomberg, elder abuse plot exposed at legendary tech firm. By day 3, it was on CNN, how one 72-year-old CEO outsmarted her own family. My phone rang constantly. Board members calling to resign. Employees calling to express support. Journalists calling for interviews. I ignored most of them and focused on what mattered, protecting the company and its 400 employees from the scandal. Susan Eng became acting COO within 24 hours of the meeting. She was brilliant, ruthless when needed, and had zero patience for corporate politics. Exactly what we needed. "The staff is rattled," she told me in our first strategy session. "They want to know if the company is stable. If their jobs are safe. Then tell them yes, I'd said. We're more than stable. We're stronger than ever. Because we cut out the cancer before it spread. Marcus resigned on day 2. His resignation letter was formal, legal, devoid of emotion. I hereby resign my position as Chief Operating Officer of Chen Industries, effective immediately. I acknowledge my failure in judgment and accept full responsibility for my role in recent events. I wish the company continued success under my mother's leadership. He hadn't called me. Hadn't come to see me. Just sent the letter through his attorney and disappeared. Vanessa, by contrast, went down fighting. She'd hired a crisis PR firm that issued a statement claiming she was the victim of a vindictive mother-in-law who'd manipulated evidence to destroy a younger woman's reputation. The statement painted me as a bitter old woman clinging to power, unable to accept that the world had moved on without me. It might have worked, except for one thing. I had the receipts. Jonathan Whitmore released a carefully curated portion of the evidence to the media. Not everything, we were saving the most damaging materials for the criminal trial, but enough. The forged trust documents. The Apex Strategic Solutions payment records. The recording of Vanessa discussing guardianship as a strategy. Public opinion shifted overnight. Twitter exploded with support. #StandWithEleanor trended for 2 days. Women in tech shared their own stories of being underestimated, pushed aside, betrayed by family members who saw their success as an opportunity for theft. One tweet captured it perfectly. A 72-year-old woman built a tech empire from nothing, survived her husband's death, caught her own family trying to steal it all, and still closed a $127 million deal with Microsoft. Eleanor Chen is everyone's new hero. But the most satisfying fallout came from the board members who'd accepted Vanessa's bribes. Richard Westwood resigned immediately and lawyered up. Paul Anderson tried to fight it, claiming the payments were legitimate consulting fees. The SEC froze his accounts within a week. Jennifer Kim released a statement admitting her mistake and offering to cooperate fully with investigators. I was approached by Mrs. Price Chen 6 months ago, her statement read. She told me that Mrs. Chen was declining mentally and that the family needed board support to transition leadership smoothly. She offered payment for my consulting services. I now understand this was a bribe and that I was manipulated into betraying a woman who'd been a mentor to me for 15 years. I am profoundly sorry. Too little, too late. But at least she tried. The company stabilized faster than I'd expected. Employees rallied around the story of the scrappy founder who'd outsmarted the villains. Stock value increased by 18% once the Microsoft deal was announced publicly. Clients sent messages of support. But in the quiet moments, late at night in my Central Park apartment, I felt the weight of what I'd done. I'd destroyed my son's career. Sent his wife to prison. Exposed board members I'd worked with for decades. Made my family drama a public spectacle. David's voice echoed in my memory. My trust is earned through evidence, not promises. But what happens when the evidence proves your own family is the enemy? On day 5, Marcus called. "Mom," he said when I answered. His voice was hoarse. "Can we talk?" We met at a small park near my apartment. Neutral ground. Public enough that neither of us could make a scene. He looked terrible. Unshaven. Dark circles under his eyes. The corporate polish stripped away to reveal the boy I remembered. "I lost everything," he said. "Vanessa left me. She's facing federal charges. The company. I can't work in tech anymore. No one will hire me." "You lost what you tried to steal," I said. "Not what you earned." "I know." He stared at his hands. "I don't know how it happened. How I became this person. When I married Vanessa, I thought she was ambitious. Driven. Like you and Dad. I didn't realize she was just greedy." "You did realize," I said quietly. "You just chose to ignore it because it was easier than standing up to her." "You're right." He looked up, and his eyes were wet. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly. For all of it. I studied my son. 41 years old. Still my baby, even after everything. What will you do now?" I asked. "I don't know." Start over, I guess. Maybe move somewhere no one knows me. Get a regular job. Be a regular person. He laughed bitterly. Turns out I wasn't cut out to run an empire anyway. You were never supposed to run it alone, I said. That was your mistake. You thought it was about control, about being in charge. It was never about that. It was about building something that mattered. Like you and Dad did. Like we did together. Partnership, Marcus. That's what I wanted to teach you. Not dominance. Not hostile takeovers. Partnership. We sat in silence for a while, watching joggers circle the path, mothers pushing strollers, an old man feeding pigeons. Normal people living normal lives. I'm not giving you the company back, I said eventually. You understand that, right? I understand. But I'm not cutting you out of my life either. You're still my son. You'll always be my son. Even when you disappoint me. He nodded, unable to speak. Get therapy, I advised. Figure out who you are without Vanessa telling you. And when you've done that, when you've proven you can stand on your own 2 feet, call me. We'll have dinner. We'll talk about what comes next. You do that. After everything. I'm 72 years old, Marcus. I don't have time to hold grudges. But I also don't have time for people who can't be trusted. Earn back my trust, and we'll see. I stood to leave. He caught my hand. Mom, for what it's worth, you were right. About everything. I should have listened. You should have, I agreed. But that's how we learn. Painfully. I left him sitting on that bench, a middle-aged man trying to find his way back to himself. And I went back to my apartment and cried for the first time since the whole thing began. Cried for my son. For David, who wasn't here to see this mess. For 43 years of building something beautiful that had almost been destroyed by greed. Then I dried my tears, made myself tea, and opened my laptop. Because Chen Industries wasn't going to run itself. And I had a lot of work to do. 6 months later, I stood on the rooftop terrace of the Chen Innovation Center, watching the sunset paint Brooklyn in shades of amber and rose. The old textile factory was unrecognizable now, transformed into a gleaming educational facility with state-of-the-art computer labs, maker spaces, and classrooms filled with students who looked like I had at 17, hungry, brilliant, and convinced they could change the world. Mrs. Chen? A young woman approached, wearing a Chen Innovation Center t-shirt. We're ready for the ribbon cutting whenever you are. Thank you, Maria. I'll be right there. The past 6 months had been transformative. After the scandal, I'd made a decision. If I was going to keep running Chen Industries, I was going to run it my way. On my terms. With my values. I'd restructured the board, bringing in 3 new members, all women, all with technical backgrounds, all under 50. Susan Eng was now COO, and she was brilliant. We'd promoted Daniel Ortega to VP of Operations. He was thriving. The Microsoft deal had led to 2 more major contracts. Revenue was up 34%. Employee satisfaction was at an all-time high. Turns out that when you remove toxic leadership and reward actual competence, companies do better. Who knew? I'd also started something new, the Chen Foundation for Elder Empowerment. A non-profit dedicated to protecting elderly business owners from financial exploitation. We offered free legal services, fraud detection, and advocacy. The foundation had already helped 12 other seniors fight back against family members or business partners trying to steal their life's work. It's an epidemic, the foundation's director had told me. Elder financial abuse is one of the fastest growing crimes in America. And no one talks about it because the victims are ashamed. I was done being ashamed. I'd turned my story into a TED Talk, a PBS documentary, and a speaking tour that took me to conferences across the country. Everywhere I went, elderly women approached me with tears in their eyes. Thank you for fighting back, they said. Thank you for showing us we can be strong. As for Vanessa, she was awaiting trial on 15 counts of fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. Her brother Derek had already pleaded guilty and was serving 18 months in federal prison. Vanessa's crisis PR firm had dropped her after the full evidence became public. She'd moved back to Ohio to live with her parents, her Instagram account deleted, her social climbing days over. I didn't take pleasure in her downfall. But I didn't regret it either. She'd made her choices. Marcus and I had dinner once a month now. He'd moved to Portland, gotten a job at a small non-profit teaching coding to underprivileged kids. He was seeing a therapist twice a week. He called every Sunday. I'm dating someone, he told me last month. She's a teacher. Elementary school. She has no idea about my past. Are you going to tell her? Eventually. When I'm ready. When I trust that she's with me for me, not for what she thinks I can give her. That's wise. I learned from the best. Our relationship would never be what it was. That innocence was gone. But we were building something new. Something honest. And that was enough. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was small but meaningful. 50 inaugural students, their families, local politicians, and tech leaders from across the city. I gave a brief speech about David, about building things that lasted, about investing in the next generation. My husband used to say that technology isn't about the newest gadget or the biggest valuation, I told the crowd. It's about solving real problems for real people. That's what we're teaching here. Not just coding. Not just engineering. But the kind of thinking that changes lives. After the ceremony, an elderly Chinese woman approached me. She had to be at least 80, with white hair pulled back in a neat bun and sharp, intelligent eyes. Mrs. Chen, she said in Mandarin, I saw your documentary. My grandson tried to steal my restaurant last year. Said I was too old to run it anymore. Your story gave me courage to fight back. I won. I'm glad, I said, switching to Mandarin easily. What's your restaurant called? Golden Phoenix. In Flushing. You should come sometime. First meal is free for the woman who taught me I wasn't finished yet. I laughed. I'd be honored. She took my hand in both of hers. Her grip was surprisingly strong. We survive, don't we? We Chinese grandmothers. They think we're weak because we're old. They forget we're made of steel. Tempered by fire, I agreed. Tempered by fire, she repeated, nodding. Then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd. I stayed on the rooftop as the sun set completely and the stars began to emerge. Manhattan sparkled across the river, a constellation of dreams and ambitions and people all trying to build something meaningful. I thought about my life. About arriving in America at 17 with nothing but hope. About meeting David in that MIT classroom. About the warehouse and the late nights and the impossible dream of building something that mattered. About raising Marcus alone after David died. About the betrayal that had nearly destroyed everything. About standing in Jonathan Whitmore's office with my files and my evidence and my carefully concealed rage. About the choice I'd made, to fight back instead of fading away. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo album. There was one picture I returned to often, David and me on the day we signed the lease for the factory. We were young, terrified, and absolutely certain we were going to change the world. And we had. Not in the way we'd imagined. Not with billions of dollars or household name products or celebrity status. But with steady growth and good jobs and technology that solved real problems. With a son who'd lost his way but was finding it again. With a foundation that protected others from the betrayals I'd survived. With this building full of students who would go on to build their own empires, armed with knowledge and opportunity and the example of a 72-year-old woman who'd refused to quit. I thought I lost everything when David died. Then again when Marcus betrayed me. But I'd gained something too, proof of my own strength. Understanding of my own worth. Freedom from the need for anyone's approval. I didn't need Marcus to validate my legacy. I didn't need Vanessa's respect or the board's permission or society's approval. I had built something real. Something that would outlast me. And I was still building. At 72, I wasn't finished. I was just getting started. I went back inside, where Maria was showing students how to program a robotic arm. I joined them, offering suggestions, watching their faces light up when the code worked. Teaching the next generation what David had taught me, that technology is magic, and magic is just science we haven't explained yet. Mrs. Chen, one student asked, How old were you when you started Chen Industries? 34, I said. Older than most startup founders. Everyone told me I was too late. Too old. Too much of a risk. What did you say? I smiled. I said, watch me. The student grinned. That's what I'm going to say too. Good, I said. Because the world needs more people who refuse to be told what they can't do. I stayed until the building closed, until the last student left, until it was just me and the ghosts of everything David and I had built together. I stood in the center of the main lab, where the factory floor used to be, and felt him there. Felt his approval. His pride. His love. We did it, I whispered to the empty room. They tried to take it away, but we did it. And then I went home to my apartment, my cat, my quiet life that was anything but quiet. I had board meetings tomorrow. A foundation strategy session on Wednesday. A potential acquisition to review on Friday. I had work to do. I had a legacy to protect. And I had proven, once and for all, that you don't need to be young to be dangerous. You don't need permission to be powerful. And you definitely don't need to accept being pushed aside when you've earned your place through 4 decades of excellence. I thought they'd won when they tried to take my company. But I'd gained my freedom instead. And that, in the end, was worth more than any empire.